Hello, Sci-Fi Adventurers. This is Sonia here with the Sci-fi Adventures Channel, and I'm happy to be back with more of my story time tracks. And we're up to Chapter 6, which I have titled Plan of Escape. So I'm just going to go ahead and get right into the story. Flanagan, the time conductor, also affectionately known as TC to his friends, walked quickly back to the train depot and boarded Old Destiny. Spencer greeted him at the entrance to the high front cab with a worried frown. "What happened, TC?" TC made a beeline for the driver's seat and sat down shaking his head in frustration before answering. Spencer followed closely after him, looking so tense and ready to spring into action that TC wasted no time in getting straight to the point. "I'm afraid that I don't have any good news for us at the moment, Spencer. The Time Bandit has administered a drug to Sophia, causing temporary amnesia. Thankfully, the effect of the drug is only temporary, but it does mean that for the time being, it's not likely that Sophia remembers either one of us." Spencer stared at TC with a wide-eyed, stricken expression. "But how can we rescue her then, if she does not even know who we are?" Looking as though he might fly right out of the cab, Spencer began pacing back and forth. "Oh, you weren't kidding. This is not good. Wait, though, do you think there is any chance at all that Sophia might still remember Daniel?" TC seemed to perk up a bit at the question and edged forward in his seat. Suddenly, his countenance brightened and he snapped his fingers. "Well, let's see, I'm not sure, but since the drug affected only her short-term memory, and from only a part of the past day or so, it might be possible. That is, if fortune is on our side. I think you might be on to something here. Well done, Spencer. The Time Bandit would not see this one coming. He will surely be focused on the idea of you and I showing up together to confront him as our next move." Spencer finally stopped pacing, and his eyes lit up with new hope. "That's it then. That is our angle." TC nodded in agreement and got busy right away opening up one of the overhead compartments. He pulled out a large and somewhat cumbersome toolbox and set it down with a loud thump on the floor of the cab. He then opened another overhead compartment containing a lunchbox and tossed it to Spencer, who caught it with a puzzled expression. Seeing Spencer's confusion, TC chuckled. "Trust me, we are going to need it." Spencer laughed out loud. "Okay, I believe you. In fact, I wouldn't mind eating right now myself, but I'm too anxious to get going." TC grabbed a set of keys hanging from a hook on the side wall of the cab and waved at Spencer. "Yes, indeed, we will eat more later, my friend, but for now, let's go." In no time at all, they were walking at a brisk pace in the direction of the Time Bandits' headquarters. Spencer wanted to run, but TC explained that running would draw undue attention to them. The train depot was just a few blocks away from the Time Bandits' headquarters, and so it did not take them long at all to get there. Upon their arrival, Spencer stood staring unimpressed and a bit slack-jawed as he surveyed the dull gray office building. "So this is it? These are the Time Bandits' headquarters?" TC was all business as he nodded. "Yes, and we need to go around the back. There are at least 2 holding cells in this building, and I was standing directly in front of one of them when I was talking with the Time Bandit. I kept him talking long enough to notice another cell further down the corridor, and I have a hunch Daniel is in that one." Spencer pointed up at the sun. Are we going to do this in broad daylight?" TC was already heading towards the back of the building, and Spencer scrambled to catch up with him. "What if somebody sees us?" TC stopped briefly in his tracks to look Spencer squarely in the eye. I believe we can do this, Spencer. The Time Bandit is not expecting us to contact Daniel. His only precaution, I suspect, has been to post a guard outside of Sophia's cell to try and keep us from retrieving her. Spencer shook his head in acknowledgement. I get it. It's like we're coming in, so to speak, through the back door. Still all business, TC set the toolbox down on the unkempt lawn that was much in need of mowing and pointed to one of the windows. I believe that window right there is it, Spencer. The back door for us indeed. Spencer was pacing back and forth again. Okay, so what do we do now, TC? TC pointed to the toolbox and opened the lid. Inside were goggles, gloves, and a most interesting item, an electric angle grinder saw. Spencer gasped out loud. Oh, wow, TC, are you serious? Someone will hear us for sure. TC put on the protective gloves and goggles as Spencer stood watching, open-mouthed. Okay, Spencer, now here's the plan. I'm going to cut through that window and hopefully talk some sense into Daniel while you go straight through the front door and create a distraction. Spencer gasped out loud. Oh, this is wild, just wild, but okay, let's do it. Let's rescue Sophia. TC already had the saw in hand and was about to start cutting. All you have to do is distract the Time Bandit and his lackeys for, let's say, around 15 or 20 minutes. Then you need to get out of the building as fast as you can, and I will meet you out front. Spencer turned to go, but then stopped. But wait, we aren't going to just leave Sophia here, are we? If we can pull this off, Spencer, I'm going to arrange for Daniel to get her out later, my friend. That is, if his head has not already been filled with too many lies. I know this is a risky plan, and so if you don't want to do it... Spencer cut him off abruptly. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't miss this for the world. Start cutting, TC. I'll meet you out front in about 15 minutes or so. Without looking back, Spencer tore off running towards the entrance of the building. And as soon as he opened the front double doors, he could hear the loud whirring of TC's grinder saw behind him. Stepping into the building, he noticed with relief that the noise of the saw was nearly undetectable inside. There was a clock on the wall at the front entrance, and Spencer made a quick mental note of the time before breaking into a full and noisy run down the hallway. His gym shoes squeaked loudly as he ran, but seeing no one around, he shouted out at the top of his lungs, "Hello, is anyone here?" Catching his breath, he came to a sudden and crashing halt. Directly in front of him now stood a tall, gaunt figure wearing an odd, long gray coat. His arms were crossed, and he regarded Spencer with open disdain. Spencer recognized the figure right away as the Time Bandit, not only because TC had meticulously described his appearance to him, but because Spencer had seen him before. It had been at the train station when he and Sophia had first met. Spencer had spotted an eerie figure standing in the shadows several feet away from them, and apparently Spencer's position on the bench, unlike Sophia's, had allowed him to view the Time Bandit. Unfortunately, at that time, Spencer had concluded that he must be seeing things, and so he had reasoned that Sophia would be better off without him. Much to his shame, instead of just telling Sophia what he had seen, he had chosen instead to flee the train station, and he was not at all proud of it. As he was running away, though, he was seized with guilt for leaving Sophia alone like that, especially if his eyes had been playing tricks on him, and he had left her there, had not been playing tricks on him, and he had left her there in possible danger. That was when he decided to turn around and make the long trek back to Sofia and the train station. And now here he was, face to face with the Time Bandit again, who was very real. And this time he was not going to run. Neither Spencer or the Time Bandit said anything for a full minute or two until finally the Time Bandit spoke out in a condescending and scolding tone. "I thought for sure I'd run you off for good at the train station." He then pointed a long bony finger of accusation at Spencer. "You are a foolish boy to have returned." In spite of himself, Spencer blurted out a defense and regretted it immediately. "I am not a child." The Time Bandit reared his head back and let out a cackling laugh. Spencer's face grew hot with anger, and he knew he had to get control of himself somehow, if not for his sake, then for Sofia. TC had wanted a distraction, but Spencer was not sure if this fit the bill. It was beginning to feel as though the Time Bandit was simply toying with him, much as a cat would with a mouse. The Time Bandit's eyes suddenly narrowed alarmingly, and he tilted his head to the side as though he were listening intently. Now why would that old fool Flanagan send you in here alone? That really isn't like him at all." The Time Bandit's eyes continued to narrow even further, giving him the most unsettling appearance of a Cheshire cat. "You are clearly here to distract me, but the question is, from what?" The Time Bandit's eyes suddenly flew wide open, and he grimaced in such an alarming way that Spencer was caught off guard. The Time Bandit then proceeded to stare intently into Spencer's eyes for so long that he grew quite uncomfortable. Not wanting to show weakness, however, Spencer held his ground and stared back at the Time Bandit defiantly. The longer this strange and unpleasant staring game went on, the more disoriented Spencer became. It took Spencer far too long to consciously realize that the pupils of the Time Bandit's eyes were impossibly whirling around and around in an effect that was disturbingly hypnotic and mesmerizing. Spencer attempted to look away and discovered with alarm that he could not. Held captive in the Time Bandit's gaze, Spencer managed with great effort to speak. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but it won't work. I don't even believe in spells or hypnosis or whatever it is you're trying to do." Much to his horror, however, and from somewhere that seemed far away to him, he heard his own voice betray him. "Well, yes, of course I'm here to distract you." The Time Bandit urged him on in a soothing tone. "Yes, do go on." Spencer tried again in vain to resist the overwhelming compulsion to comply. "Daniel. We're here for Daniel." The Time Bandit reared his head back, but this time he did not laugh. Instead, he looked as though he had been struck in the face. The hypnotic whirling of his eyes mercifully stopped then, and Spencer let out a sigh of relief as the spell, or whatever it was, began to break, and he started to feel more like himself again. The Time Bandit also seemed to have now lost all interest in him, and he turned on his heel and ran with his gray coat flying out behind him, away from Spencer and down the hallway. More than eager to leave that terrible place, Spencer wasted no time himself in running back to the building's front entrance. As he once again passed by the clock on the wall, he noted that 25 minutes had passed since he had first entered the Time Bandit's headquarters. Quickly exiting the building, Spencer took a deep breath of the fresh air and nearly ran headlong into TC, who was right there waiting for him, just as they had planned. And that does conclude Chapter 6 of Time Tracks. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're enjoying the story, and I look forward to being back with you very soon with Chapter 7. So until next time, this is Sonia with Sci-Fi Adventures, signing off for now.